What's up? It's Jay Way 2 here with your fresh revelation for this week. We're going to continue with Destiny Demands Diligence. We're going to look at Moses. I didn't put an exact uh, scripture because we're going to look at the entire story because it's uh, it's a testament of diligence, but it's also a story that well, an account. I hate to say story because it's not a story. An account that runs the gamut of human emotion when headed towards your destiny. Um, Moses was born for what he did, and from his birth, there were obstacles in the way of his destiny, but ultimately he reached what he was supposed to do. Um, of course, he was born, and his mother put him on the Nile. We all know the story, and Pharaoh's daughter found him, raised him in the palace, and he was raised in the palace until about age 40. He he killed the Egyptian, hid him, and fled to the backside of Horeb, uh, and he went to Jethro and herded his sheep, married his daughter, and he did that for 40 years as well. Um, so he spent 40 years in the palace, 40 years herding sheep, um, and at the what seems today the elder age of 80, God came to him because it was time for him to step into his destiny. Now, what's important about Moses is um, account is all of the things that led up to God coming to him on the backside of the Mount of Horeb. Um, he was born, and he was placed in the basket and sent down the river, and Pharaoh's daughter found him because the firstborn were ordered to be killed. But Moses' mother looked at him, and she knew that there was something about this child, and something that was special about this child, and God had a special calling on this child's life. And his mother said, "This child has to live," and she put him on the river. And Pharaoh's daughter just happened to be out at the river at the right time, grabbed this baby and raised this baby as her own. Um, that's that destiny is already taking shape, and it lets us know that even before we know what's going on, even before we realize what our destiny is, even before we even realize who we are, God is already working your destiny out. He has a plan for your life, and that's the genesis of this destiny demands diligence thing, because all of us have a calling on our life. As I've been telling you for over a year now, we all have a calling. We all have a purpose. God has a purpose for your life, and He's already working on that purpose even before you realize what that purpose is. He's already working on who you are before you even realize who you are. Moses was a baby. He knew nothing. He didn't even know he existed. But God was already working for his destiny and his purpose. God was already making these things sync up before he even knew what was going on. And that's a good word to us today. Before we even understand and realize what's going on, God is already working in your behalf on your purpose and your destiny. Your destiny is already being set. Your purpose is already being planned. Your life is already taking shape before you even understand what's going on. So it behooves us, especially when we finally realize what our purpose and our plan is, it behooves us to be diligent in the work. Be diligent in the purpose. Be diligent in what God has called you to do because he's already working in your behalf, on your behalf. God is already doing what what he needs to do in order to get our destiny in line, in order to get our purpose set out. God is already moving. God is already working, even when we think he's not. Because check this out. He spent 40 years in the palace of Pharaoh, and he didn't agree with what was going on because something within him was telling him that this is not right. I identify more with the people that's enslaved than the people in this palace. I identify more with them than the people that I've been raised with. Something is not right here. And he took it upon himself. And a lot of people take things upon themselves and start doing things that we're not supposed to do. And I believe that Moses' destiny was delayed because he took matters into his own hands and killed the Egyptian soldier. That was soldiers that were roughing up the slave, the Hebrew slave, and he went off into to the desert, and there he began to tend to Jethro's sheep. Now, what's important is Moses, even though he delayed his destiny, I believe. Now, the Bible doesn't say this. Maybe that was his purpose to go out for 40 years and be. But I don't believe, and this is not Bible. This is just J Way 2 right here. I don't believe that his destiny should have been delayed so long. But because he took matters into his own hands, I believe that his destiny was delayed. But there was purpose even in that. So I said all of that to say this. Maybe you have delayed your destiny. Maybe the actions that you've taken in the past, maybe the things that you've done, the way that you've been, maybe it has delayed your destiny. And you feel like, hey, I'm 40, I'm 45, I'm 50, I'm 60, and that my life is basically done. And I've wasted time. But God has a way of giving you that time back. And you'll be able to accomplish your purpose because even though he was in the wilderness and tending to sheep, God was still working on his behalf. And brothers and sisters, even though you may have frittered away some of your time, even though like I'm 42 now, and trying to do some of the things that I'm doing, it may seem like I'm too old to do this. But God has a way of restoring your years. We talked about that before. Him restoring the years that the locust had eaten and all of that kind of thing. God has a way of fixing those things that we mess up, especially when we come back to him and start living in our purpose. And when we're diligent in our purpose, when we're diligent in our purpose, we will reach our destiny. Destiny demands diligence. Now, Moses did what he was supposed to do on the backside of Horeb, and God showed up. God showed up. We know in the burning bush, the bush that was burning but not consumed, the bush that was burning but not consumed. I heard Uncle Tim say there was fire over the bush, there was fire under the bush, there was fire around the bush, but there was no fire in the bush. The bush was on fire but not consumed. And Moses, look, hey, I got to look at this. Sometimes God uses the extraordinary to get our attention. You know, all of those things that we look at and say, hey, it's something there, something. God is getting your attention. So sometimes it's a still small voice, but sometimes there's a burning bush situation. And we have to be mindful of that. And Moses was mindful of the situation he was placed in. Hey, something. Hey, I'm going to take my shoes off. Because God told him, hey, Moses, it's me. I'm the one trying to get your attention. Take your shoes off. It's holy ground that you're standing on. I'm here. And I'm about to tell you what I want you to do. And God told Moses what he wanted him to do. And Moses did it. He got up immediately, got his wife immediately, explained to Jethro what happened, and took his wife, and they went back to Egypt. And he confronted Pharaoh. That was his destiny. That's what he was supposed to do. His destiny was to be the savior and the liberator of the people of Israel. And he did that. And he was diligent in that because Pharaoh kept telling him, hey, man. But the thing about it is, Moses, and I think he talked himself into situations because he gave so many excuses as to why he couldn't do it. I can't talk. Nobody knows who I am. They're not gonna care what I have to say. Who am I? Who are you, as a matter of fact? God told him, I am that I am, and I will be with you. And he took that and he went. Now, brothers and sisters, when God gives you a mission, you can't stop until it's done. When God gives you your purpose, you can't stop until it's done. Do what God has called you to do diligently. Because Moses, even though he had all these excuses as to why he couldn't, he took God at his word and he went to do it. And every time he would go to Pharaoh, Pharaoh would say, man, look, get up out of my face. I don't want to hear none of that. He went. Every time God told him to go back, he did. Now, he could have said, God, this man is not going to listen to me. God, this man does not care about me or what you're saying. But God said, I will make him care. All we have to do is what God told us to do. And all that we can't do, he will do. All he wants you to do is to be fit. Brother Lorenzo, be fit. Be faithful, invested, and teachable. All we have to do is be fit. And when we're fit to do what God calls us to do, what we can't do, he will do. And when he does what he can do, and we do what we can do, extraordinary things start to happen. And our destiny starts to unfold in front of our eyes. But we have to be diligent enough, faithful enough, invested enough, teachable enough to do what God has called us to do. Destiny demands diligence, and Moses was diligent. Every time Pharaoh turned him away and God told him to go back, he did. And eventually, Moses said, all right, let's just go. God says, now it's time to go. Pharaoh says, get them people out of here. I'm tired of what God is doing. I see that God is with you. Get them out. And he led the children of Israel out of Egypt. And they gave chase, of course. Moses stretched out his rod. Use what you have. God gave him a rod. Use what God has given you to be diligent in your purpose because destiny demands diligence. He stretched out the rod. Red Sea opened up. They walked out. They walked through on dry land. Red Sea came upon all of those that were chasing them, killed them. Children of Israel out. That was his destiny. That was his destiny, was to be the liberator of the children of Israel. Now, as far as them getting to the promised land and going into the promised land, that's a whole different story for a whole different day. Because Moses didn't make it. He saw it, but he didn't make it because of disobedience. But destiny demands diligence. Well, all that God wanted Moses to do, he did. Because Moses was diligent in what God told him to do. God told him to go to Pharaoh. He went. Pharaoh sent him away numerous times. God told him to go back, and he kept doing it. Whatever God tells you to do, you have to be diligent in doing that. And when you're diligent in doing what God has called you to do, which is your purpose, when you're diligent in your purpose, you will reach your destiny. Now, my destiny isn't your destiny. Your destiny isn't my destiny, but you have a destiny. You have a purpose. God has called you to be what he wants you to be. And God doesn't make any mistakes, and God doesn't make anything inferior. You are God's elect. You are God's chosen. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. So whatever he made you to be will be wonderful. Whatever he created you to do, whatever your purpose is, whatever your destiny is, rest assured that it's wonderful. It's marvelous. It's exciting. It's great because God, like our ancestors always say, God doesn't make any junk. God didn't make you to be inferior. God didn't make you to just be. God made you to be great because he is great. And when we realize that we serve a great God who creates great things and he has a great purpose for your life and a great destiny ahead for you, when you realize all of that and you live on purpose and you do it diligently, you will reach that great destiny. Destiny demands diligence. God bless you. I love you. See you later on this week.